Welcome back to Dollars and Cents. My name is Kristin Castello. I'm joined here with Rob Field. We are both certified financial fiduciaries over at Nelson Financial Planning. So before the break, we were talking about whether rental real estate makes sense. So we were going through kind of the pros and cons and the order of things to kind of think about, things to keep in mind. So as a quick recap, there are many enticing benefits to rental real estate, but it could be costly if not fully considered. So what we see is clients typically run negative at first. Many go negative for a couple of years down the road because maybe they purchased a house that needs some work. Maybe the mortgage payment is higher than the cost of rent at that time. So what we see is that some people just, kind of throw in the towel and they end up selling the rental property. But on the other hand, we have seen many success stories where clients leverage 1031 exchanges, the 20% down payment, and they can really accumulate some wealth in real estate. So we certainly have a lot of clients that have done really well with real estate, and they have great renters that pay on time and consistently. So what we do at Nelson Financial Planning is we really help you run those numbers, kind of personalize the situation, and see what makes sense for you. So giving my example from earlier, the client that had come in, he decided that rental real estate really wasn't the way to go with him because he wanted an immediate passive income stream. But given the interest rate climate and the mortgage payment versus the rent, really wasn't going to happen immediately, and the numbers didn't make sense. Additionally, he valued liquidity and the flexibility to just retire on a whim, run off to a coastal island at any point without being held up by a lengthy closing process. So if you missed any of that segment, feel free to watch our podcast, and you can find it on a host of plethora stations on our website. So Rob, take us away with some Social Security.
Yeah, thanks, Kristin. That's very interesting information. I think it's weighing the potential income versus how much effort or work it takes or cost to get it is something that people should kind of stand back and think about, talk with you, and run their own numbers. That's very glad you shared that with everybody. I wanted to circle back a little bit on something that was discussed last week, and that's the Social Security, the Trustee report comes out every year, sort of summarizes what the year looked like, how profitable was it, what was the payout, what was the income, and then if nothing were to change, what possibly could happen. So it came out last week, and you might have heard some of the highlights on the show, or if you thought that some of the information was negative, you might call it a low light. The trust fund, which is primarily what funds the retirement benefits and survivor benefits, if no changes were made, the trustee's summary is, hey, if we don't change anything that we're currently doing, then it's very possible that the trust fund, which is the excess savings, would be depleted. And if that were to be the case, we might have a reduction in benefits. So you just want to keep in mind that the benefits are paid somewhat by the trust fund, but also new money coming in from people that work. So I always emphasize, if nothing has changed, it's possible benefits could reduce. But at that point, every year we always analyze what's going on with Social Security and where the money's coming from and how it's being spent, and then we make some changes. And so I don't really see Social Security in that negative site because I've always seen year-by-year changes made. And so I've studied Social Security. I'm a national Social Security advisor. I try to get involved with as many conversations as I can. And so I think what's going to happen is people will step back and realize, okay, we've had a lot of people on Social Security. A couple of facts I want to share. One is that most of Americans, and Social Security is the majority of their income. So we can't reduce income for Americans. For approximately half of the retirees, Social Security is 50% of the money they use to pay their bills. And for about 1 in 4 people, Social Security provides 90% of their income. So we can't start reducing that dramatically without creating a major economic problem. So I think those facts alone, they have in the past and they will in the future, will motivate people that are looking at the trust fund and Congress themselves to sort of shore up the finances of what's going on with Social Security. So
those are pretty staggering statistics, Rob. So at least 50% of their income, so half of retirees, that's a lot. And
Correct.
1 in 4 provides at least 90% of their annual income. I mean, if there's no changes, those are pretty scary statistics there.
And they should be, and that is being thrown out a lot in the news, but the answer is there are things that can be done. Now, what we have noticed is sort of a larger increase in people taking benefits than normal. And it is seasonal. Every year, there's different parts of the year where people seem to retire, and that kind of happens. In the spring of this year, 2025, we had kind of an unusual surge. We had a larger number of people applying for benefits. From January of 2025 to May of 2025, the number of claims, people claiming benefits for Social Security, was 18%, almost 20% higher than it was a year ago at the same time frame. That's a very odd surge. We don't normally see that. Now, some of the things that we're seeing is that, individuals, they find it smart to postpone claiming, but certain things are motivating them maybe to accelerate. So the question always becomes, is this like a new group? Is there a change? Is it information that's being shared? Or is it just simply people who are concerned or worried? One thing that occurred during this year, Social Security updated the Social Security Fairness Act in 2025. And what that did was it said anybody that's collecting Social Security and is also getting a certain type of government pension, the government pension was reducing the amount of their Social Security. It was kind of an offset. It's called the windfall elimination provision. That's been dropped. So now if you're collecting Social Security and you're getting this special type of pension from a government job, teachers, firefighters, etc., it's now you'll still get the pension, you'll get your full amount of Social Security. So some people are seeing an increase and how much they get. So that being the case, anybody who was like, well, I'm going to hold off on collecting Social Security because this pension is going to reduce it and I'll let it go up, are now saying, wait a minute, I can get full Social Security and the pension. I'm going to go ahead and just apply a little bit earlier.
Yeah, it sounds like a win-win. Why wouldn't you?
Well, you as the person claiming it, of course, you would say that's great. To Social Security, they're like, wait a second, because we've fixed this, we're now having more money going out, which is always something that they want to, if possible, avoid that. Mm-hmm. Another reason for the increased payout is there's a larger number of people who are shifting from a spousal benefit, which was about 50% of what the other spouse was getting, to their own benefit. So now they're going to get 100%. And they're finding over the years, more and more couples are both working and making pretty good incomes, which means they both qualify for a pretty good Social Security benefit when retirement comes. And there's really not a need for one to take 50% of a spousal benefit of the other spouse when their own benefit is much, much higher. So you got more people claiming, and they're claiming on themselves, and they're getting a higher payout. The other thing that I think really is taking an effect on affecting Social Security and the payout is sort of the economic future that people perceive. And so they're very concerned about the current administration, a lot of changes. They fear that with these changes might come a reduction or a change or a decrease in Social Security. So anytime you have instability in one area, it kind of creates a desire to have more stability in another area. So what we want to do, one way to reduce stress about that would be take your benefits now. Instead of taking them in the future, you take them now, get them early. Maybe you don't even need it, but you're going to save the difference because you're afraid that Social Security won't be there in the future. Now, we've talked a little bit about it. Will be there, a slight reduction if nothing changed. I believe changes will be made. Other thing I always like to point out is Social Security does increase. The benefit you can get will increase by about 8% every year that you delay. So that's a pretty good return on your money right there. So taking the money and trying to invest it because you don't think Social Security is going to keep up with inflation is actually, you're giving away almost a guaranteed 8% return on what your Social Security benefit could be. So here's what I kind of consider as the call to action for Congress. So, the trustees of the funds have asked Congress to address long-term financing issues, and they're emphasizing that we got to do something soon versus waiting any longer. If you think about an organization and how it runs its business, there are really three ways any group can kind of improve their finances. One's going to be increase the amount of money that comes in. The other one would be delay the amount of money that comes out, and then also decrease the amount of money that you got to pay out. So Social Security is going to address these financial obligations in the same way. They've been doing it every year. They'll continue to do it. That will help. So they're going to look at taxation of workers' income. They'll increase the amount of money that they're taxing on everybody's income. They've done it before. They'll continue to do that. They'll delay what they define as full retirement age. Full retirement age is important because that's where you start your calculation. That also gives you a chance to collect Social Security and work and not have a reduction. We'll continue this conversation on Social Security and some of the changes that might occur. Appreciate you listening in. This is Dollars and Cents. We'll be back after the break.